5, 4, 3. Dos, uno. Come on, TriCaster. Live?
Yes.
All right. We're live, ladies and gentlemen. To my left, Tim Poole. Everybody knows and loves him. Vija, what is it? How do I pronounce your last name?
Vija Gatti.
Vija, not Vija. Vija.
Yes.
Vija
Gatti.
And your position at Twitter is?
I lead trust and safety, legal, and public policy.
That's a lot. And Jack Dorsey, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you everybody for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Feels all of a sudden there's tension in the room. We're all loose. We're all loosey goosey just a few minutes
There's
ago.
no tension.
And everyone's like, oh, this is really happening. Here we go. Before we get started, we should say, because there were some things that people wanted to have us talk about. One, that the Cash App is one of the sponsors of the podcast. It's been a sponsor for a long time, and also a giant supporter of my good friend Justin Wren's Fight for the Forgotten charity, building wells for the pygmies in the Congo. This is very important to me, and I'm very happy that you guys are a part of that, and you are connected to that. It's easy for someone to say that doesn't have an influence on the way we discuss things, but it doesn't. So if it does, I don't know what to tell you.
I'm going to mention, too, just because I don't want people to come out and freak out later, I actually have like 80 shares in Square, which isn't really that much, but
it's something.
It is. So I don't want people to think, whatever. You're the CEO of Square, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, there you go.
We own the Cash App, so.
And the reason why we decided to come together is we had, I thought, a great conversation last time, but there was a lot of people that were upset that there were some issues that we didn't discuss in depth enough, or they felt that I didn't press you enough. I talked to Tim because, Tim and I have talked before, and he made a video about it, and I felt like his criticism was very valid. So we got on the phone and we talked about it, and I knew immediately within the first few minutes of the conversation that he was far more educated about this than I was. So I said, would you be willing to do a podcast and perhaps do a podcast with Jack? And he said, absolutely. So we did a podcast together. It was really well received. People felt like we covered a lot of the issues that they felt like I didn't bring up. And so then Jack and I discussed it, and we said, well, let's bring Tim on and then have Vija on as well. I said that right?
Yep.
It's a hard one. Sorry. I'll get
No
it
problem.
right. I promise. But so we're here. We're here.
We're here.
Today, do you know who Sean Baker is? He's a doctor who's a prominent proponent of the carnivore diet. His post was his account was frozen today. I just sent it to you, Jamie.
It's just a screenshot.
Yeah. His account was frozen today because of an image that he had, because he's a proponent of the carnivore diet. There's a lot of people that believe that this elimination diet is very healthy for you, and it's known to cure a lot of autoimmune issues with certain people, but some people ideologically oppose it because they think it's bad for the environment, or you shouldn't eat meat, or whatever the reasons are.
This is huge in the Bitcoin community, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's for a lot of people that have autoimmune issues, particularly psoriasis and arthritis. It is a lifesaver. It's crazy. It's essentially it's an autoimmune issue. So because he has a photo of a lion in a header eating looks like a wildebeest or something like that, his account was locked for violating his rules against graphic violence or adult content in profile images. That seems a little silly, and I wanted to just mention that right away. Now, whose decision is something like that? Like, who decides to lock a guy's account out because it has a nature image of, natural predatory behavior?
In this particular case, it's probably an algorithm that detected it and made some sort of an assessment. But as a general rule, how we operate as a company is we rely on people to report information to us. So if you look at any tweet, you can kind of pull down on the caret on the right, and you can say report the tweet, and then you have a bunch of categories you can choose from of what you want to report. I think this one in particular, though, is probably an algorithm.
So how does he have the option to protest that or to ask someone to review it?
Absolutely. And I'm guessing that people are already reviewing it, but there's a choice to appeal any action, and that would go to a human to make sure that it is actually a violation of the rules, or in this case, if it's not, then it would be removed.
Is that a violation of the rules? That image?
I don't think so. I don't think that that would be what we're trying to capture in terms of graphic images in an avatar. It's more about violence towards humans, unless it was some sort of cruelty depicting animals or something like that. But this seems not the intention of the rule.
Does this one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up immediately? Does this highlight a flaw in the system in that people can target an individual? Because with him, like I said, he's a doctor and a proponent of this carnivore diet, but he's also ruthless in his condemnation and mocking of vegans. He does it all the time. And so then they get upset at him, and they can target posts and just report them en masse. And when they do that, then this becomes an issue.
I think this does reveal part of, the challenges that we face as a global platform at scale. In this, I don't know what happened in this case, so it's hard for me to talk about it. But what I would say is that it doesn't really matter if one person reports it or 10,000 people report it. Like, we're going to review the reports and we're going to make an assessment, and we're never going to, kick someone off the platform finally and forever without a person taking a look and making sure that it's an actual violation of the rules.
Right. Okay. So,
but the mob reporting behavior does happen.
Yeah, it does.
It happens across the spectrum.
I'd have to assume it's going to be one direction. I can't imagine he would target vegans, but vegans would target him, right?
Well, he might. I mean, he doesn't. But
is he the kind of guy who's going to want to report to vegans and get them banned from Twitter, or is he going to want to make fun of them?
He's going to make fun of them. Yeah.
They're going to target him to try and get him removed by exploiting the system that you guys have.
It may not be him, though. It could also be his followers. It's a really complicated world out there. So you don't. The motivations of why people mob report are different, and it's not always under someone's control.
It could even be other carnivore diet proponents who are just jerks that don't like him because he's getting all the love. People are weird.
Yeah,
but it's
that's
just
true.
The idea, though, is that it does kind of highlight a bit of a flaw in that it's good that someone can, like, 'cause you might see something awful, someone doxing someone or something like that, and then you can take that and report it, and then people can see it and get rid of it and minimize the damage that's done.
There's another big problem here in that, is the carnivore diet legitimately healthy? Is it a threat to your health? And if it is what is Twitter's responsibility in controlling that information? Right. So just to clarify, my opinion is, if he wants to be a proponent for the carnivore diet, let him. But you've got people on YouTube who are being deranked for certain beliefs about certain health issues that I don't agree with. And so one of the risks then is, we're coming towards a position where people think some ideas are better than others, therefore, as a company, we're going to restrict access to certain information.
You mean like anti-vax
Exactly,
people?
right.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm trying to say is, at what point would you guys restrict someone from sharing false information about vaccines that could get someone hurt?
That is not a violation of Twitter's rules. No.
I think, I'd be interested to hear your ideas around this, but our perspective right now is around this concept of variety perspective. Like, are we encouraging more echo chambers and filter bubbles, or are we at least showing people other information that might be counter to what they see? And there's a bunch of research that would suggest that further emboldens their views. There's also research that would suggest that it at least gives them a consideration about what they currently believe. So,
well, you guys. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Given the dynamics of our network being completely public, we're not organized around communities, we're not organized around topics. We have a little bit more freedom to show more of the spectrum of any one particular issue, and I think that's how we would approach it from the start. That said, we haven't really dealt much with misinformation more broadly across like these sorts of topics. We've focused our efforts on elections and mainly elections right now.
YouTube is a different animal.
It is.
Someone can really convince you that the earth is flat if you're gullible and you watch a 45-minute YouTube video.
Right.
It's kind of a different thing.
But I wanted to just kind of get into that statement you made about misinformation and whether or not you'll police it. So
I think that the tough part of this is really, and love to have a discussion about this, is do you really want corporations to police what's true and not true?
Absolutely not.
That's a really, really tough position.
But you guys do that.
We try not to do that. We don't want to do that.
But you do in your rules.
But the places that we focus on is where we think that people are going to be harmed by this in a direct and tangible way that we feel a responsibility to correct.
When
not
you
correct
say
ourselves.
in your rules, Tim, what do you mean by that? Like,
dead naming and misgendering.
Dead naming and misgendering. Yeah.
That's a specific ideology that's unique to a very small faction of people in this world that you guys actually ban people for.
So the way I think of it is it's behavior based. And I know you think of it as content, and we can disagree on this point. But this is about, why are you doing this to a trans person? Why are you calling them by this name when they've chosen to go by a different name? Or why are you outing them in some way? Like, what is your intent and purpose behind that?
I don't mean to interrupt, but in the interest of clarity, I want to explain what dead naming means.
Right.
So why don't you go ahead?
A transgender individual changes their name when they transition. A dead name would be their birth name or the name they went by before the transition.
Yeah, okay.
So,
because my mom's probably going, what? I'm ready for the text. What's a dead name?
And I will clarify too, your rules specifically say targeted misgendering and dead naming, I believe is correct, right?
So years ago, we passed a policy that we call our hateful conduct policy, and that prohibits targeting or attacking someone based on their belonging in any number of groups, whether it's because of their religion or their race or their gender, their sexual orientation, their gender identity. So it was something that's broad-based, is that you can't choose to attack people because of these characteristics.
But you do have limits on what characteristics you police, right? So you're not banning people for targeted trans-speciesing others, right?
Well, we have also general abuse and harassment rules, right? Which says you can't engage in abuse and harassment on the platform.
But you can't detonate someone, but you can call them stupid.
Generally, I mean, if you created an account that only was there to call the same person stupid 5,000 times, we'd probably view that as
targeted harassment.
Right.
It's a function of behavior, like because people with our system can do this in massive velocity.
So
which would ultimately silence you from the platform, or just say, like, I give up, I don't want to deal with this thing, I'm out.
Well, we can just get into all of the big examples. I mean, starting with me.
I'd love to, Tim, but can we just take a step back and try to level set what we're trying to do with our policies?
Sure.
Because I think it's worth doing that.
Yes.
So as a high level, I personally, and this is my job to run the policy team, I believe that everyone has a voice and should be able to use it. And I want them to be able to use it online. Now, where we draw a line is when people use their voice and use their platform to abuse and harass other people to silence them. Because I think that that's what we've seen over the years, is a number of people who have been silenced online because of the abuse and harassment they've received, and they either stop talking or they leave the platform in its entirety. If you look at free expression and free speech laws around the world, they're not absolute. There's always limitations on what you can say, and it's when you're starting to endanger other people.
So